All right, thank you for attending our presentation today on Smarter Than the Summary, Moving Beyond AI with CloudSource. My name is Rick Branham, and I'm Cersei Dynasys Senior VP of Content Solutions. With me today, and the first speaker will be Mariska Connolly. Mariska is our CloudSource Director of Partnerships and Communications, and definitely the smarter of the two. So Mariska's going to start us out, and then I'll jump in with the presentation and demo.
Okay.
Mariska, thank you.
Appreciate it. And I want to start a little bit by kind of getting on the same page about what the open access movement looks like, and I promise it'll be relevant in a moment. So when you're looking at open access by the numbers, the fact of the matter is there's a lot of it out there. 70 million scholarly resources are open access, including articles, books, data sets. 55 million of these are what we would consider scholarly articles, and I'll take a moment to define that because scholarly can mean a lot of things. In this case, it means that we have a high degree of confidence that these are peer-reviewed quality articles. They're indexed in Crossref. We feel very confident tagging these as scholarly. So very often, a lot of the other resources are as well, but we'd rather have a false, we'd rather have a false negative than a false positive. Anyway, 61% of all scholarly articles published since 2017 are open access. Which is relevant because when someone comes to the circulation desk to look for something or sits down with a reference librarian, they want something recent, the last 5-10 years. They don't want something that's 30 years old. So recent articles are what they're looking for, and that's where most of the OA is. 3.8 million open articles were published in 2023 alone, making it 67%. So more than 2/3 of the articles that year were published freely available. The problem is that only about 16% of this is found in the Directory of Open Access Journals, which many librarians, and I was guilty of it myself as a librarian, would check that on in their A to Z list, maybe share it somewhere on their website and think that they had open access pretty much covered, but that's just your fully open gold and diamond journals. Doesn't count where the majority of open access is actually coming from. This chart here on the right comes from a PeerJ study in 2017 that is so far continued to hold up when we rechecked the numbers, and they predicted that by 2040, functionally 100% of scholarly articles will be published with some type of open access license. And so far we're on target for that goal. And this is, of course, comes from funder mandates. Whether you're applying as a researcher for government grant funding, either in the US or around the globe, whether you're going to private organizations like the Wellcome Trust or the Gates Foundation, regardless, you're mandated to publish your findings in an open access format. And just the combination of these factors are really changing every year what the scholarly landscape looks like. And, one of the questions you get is, but is this, relevant high quality information? Well, when you pull the top 20 multidisciplinary journals around the world, and this comes from Cimego just this month, what you find is that a lot of them are half OA or more. Some of them are either fully open or they're approaching it rapidly. I always like to point out the #1 journal, and it's almost always in the #1 slot. This Cancer Research Journal is at 98% open. So anyone who's paying full price for that is paying for about 2%. And I'd almost guarantee those are probably editorials. But we find this across the board. Top multidisciplinary journals, no matter what the discipline, tend to have a much higher degree of open access content. And right now there's 178,000 journals publishing open access content. And that number, honestly, even of this presentation, is probably higher. And the largest publishers of open access content, they're the same publishers that have historically published the bulk of scholarly articles. They've got high editorial standards. They're not lowering them to include open access. So they're still going through that same peer-reviewed process. These journals publishers are always going to want to publish the best authors with the most interesting research, coincidentally, the people getting grant funding. And most of these are not purely OA journals. They're what we call hybrid journals, which just means that the open articles sit right next to paid articles within journal issues. They've had to make room if they want to have this high quality content. And just to remind you, 84% of open access content comes from sources other than the DOAJs and from hybrid journals and other colors of OA. Oh, my clicker doesn't work. So let's get into the topic here. I always start with search behavior. I have, as a librarian, have done research into this, in the past. All those click through and following the emotions of students as they do searches, and so I'm always trying to be really tuned into this. AI has changed that a lot. So AI is a big topic, and even when you narrow it down to AI as just a search tool, and it's evolving rapidly. When preparing this webinar, I looked at slides from earlier this year, and they were already out of date. And it's a lot for librarians to keep up with, but they kind of have to. Patrons look to librarians as an authority on quality factual information. Environmental impact and the impact on the arts kind of set aside for the moment. AI has a lot of valid uses as a tool that can save lives by doing things like catching cancer early on, or as a way to help people navigate these large bodies of information within a mediated, curated system. But your patrons aren't being given a choice whether they want to interact with AI, and the source of information are often unmediated, unvetted, and of questionable quality. So what are AI overviews, and when do you see them when you're doing research? So they're AI-generated summaries that appear before search results. Links are often provided and secondary to the summary answer, kind of off there to the side. They are designed, according to Google, to prevent people from having to visit multiple pages for complex questions. And they don't show up on a simple search, but rather more complex queries. This chart here from a Pew Research study published in July of this year, 2025, breaks down the types of questions that seem to prompt an AI overview result. 18% of searches produce an AI overview. There's a higher likelihood for long queries, so 53% of them produce an AI summary if it's more than 10 words. Question-based searches, 60% of those are going to produce an AI summary, and full sentences at about 36% of those. Simple navigation searches rarely trigger AI. Why are patrons using AI results? Well, for one thing, and honestly, probably the biggest factor is they're easy. There are already studies being published about the effect of AI tools, especially those performing research, evaluating and writing for people, and what effect they're having on their ability to think critically. That's another presentation that maybe my boss might let me make one time. Today, though, I want to focus on Google AI overviews in particular. So in order to keep the focus narrow enough to fit into this webinar, I'll offer some mediation steps a little bit later on. So AI is increasingly shaping how people encounter information. Google AI overviews, ChatGPT search, which is another big one, and other AI tools may reduce direct engagement with sources, which is a problem for librarians. And libraries do need to understand these patterns to better support discovery, digital literacy, and equitable access. So how does Google AI overview work? I mentioned going back through recent presentations just this year that discussed Google's impact on patron search behaviors. And one of the things that jumped out at me when looking at those and then looking at recent searches is how much more real estate AI summaries take up now on a search results page than they did a year or even 6 months ago. You used to be able to kind of ignore them. They were just a little answer at the top if you just wanted to, but now it requires effort to get past AI and sponsored results. Researchers need to scroll past like half a page of text, sometimes longer, including passing forums like Reddit, incidentally, where a lot of the AI answers come from. But what are these tools offering? The short answer is answers to queries and questions. Not just a map of restaurants within a 10-mile radius, which is one of my regular searches, or a list of online retailers carrying an item you want. However, these responses blur that line between commerce and credible research. They present as credible research, and the unsuspecting user without the experience or the skills at evaluating information can understandably be misled by them. So let me give you an example. There was this quote, AI is the future of search, that came up several times while I was researching this particular presentation. And it's usually attributed to Google's VP of Search, Liz Reed. I went in knowing that this claim was inaccurate because I had searched for attribution information when I first read it. The AI summary offers no contradiction to this claim. And in fact, if you look at the provided sources, None of them are from Google or its parent company, Alphabet. None are news sources or press release, and only one would be something I might loosely call authoritative, but it's a think piece. What the AI summary has done here is just go out and look for sources that in any way mention this and serve as a summary of what they found, presented as fact. I mean, there is a little disclaimer, but I don't know that anyone even notices that. The way it's presented seems very factual. Not only that, but if you slightly reword the question, which I did, you get totally different answers from the AI overview asking that same question about that quote. And here's another example. Google has claimed that the more detailed the query is, the better the results are. But honestly, I question that claim. What Google summaries do well, general knowledge. Yes and no black and white questions, sure, they can get those. If it can actually offer some really good answers, such as this one asking if the South won the Civil War. In this case, the vast majority of the information out there agrees that they lost. In these types of searches, there are quick reference sources such as encyclopedias for reference. So Google AI does a pretty good job of retrieving the correct answer to these pretty straightforward, unambiguous questions. But as soon as nuance is introduced, such as what you encounter at the reference desk or when helping a student with a research paper or a project, AI overview gets a lot less reliable. Here I'm asking, will humans go extinct, since it prefers question formats? However, this is a complicated question with a lot of factors, and many fields from sociology to ecology to philosophy to history would have different opinions on it. But why did AI overview provide such an inadequate answer here? And if you look at the cited sources, it's things like Wikipedia, Reddit, one good but non-scholarly journal, in this case Scientific American, more of a pop science. No self-respecting library professional would suggest these sources to a patron unless nothing else was available, and even then with caution. But if you aren't trained to look out for these kinds of things, this answer looks pretty good. And unfortunately, statistics show this is where the search often stops for most people. You get to see an example of a similar search in our CloudSource demo in a moment to illustrate the difference. But Pew Research did a study on Google users and AI overview just this year, again 2025, that looked at both the patterns of AI summaries and the behaviors of users when encountering them. And I think this is one of the most interesting things here. We already know those are popping up, but what are they doing with them? How are they interacting with them? Well, 58% of users saw an AI summary based on kind of that click behavior I talked about earlier. So when they saw a summary, with the summary they had about 8% click-through. Without the summary, about 15% click-through, so actually clicking on links to get more, but only 1% of them click directly on the cited sources that are over there on the right of the search results. And most of them were more likely to end a session early after they get an AI summary. So they did not continue the search. They didn't go look at any other sources below the sponsored material below the summary. And that was about 26% that they stopped right there. That was it. They were done. Doesn't matter how complicated the question was. This has dire, and if you don't mind me being a little bit dramatic here, consequences for academic publishing. It's critical for students to learn to find and evaluate scholarly information, both during and after their college years are over. One would almost argue more after sometimes, especially if they want to enter a research or an academic field or be an informed voter. From a purely practical perspective, it also has the potential to reduce the use of your expensive library resources, which can impact funding. If you're not seeing people use those databases, that's harder to get them paid for. And what other implications we have for libraries? This means reduced referral traffic, fewer users reaching publishers and library-linked content, just means fewer use overall. The authority narrows. AI privileges select platforms, and this bears out over and over again. Wikipedia, Reddit, YouTube, occasionally .gov sites, but not academic or credible sources. Users may develop shallower information diets, and this is a big concern in my information. They're no longer hungry to go a little further on it because they're being served up this fast food answer right here. And fact checking the fact-checking role of libraries becomes more critical than it ever has before, I think. But what can libraries do to mitigate this over-reliance on AI and educate patrons to think more critically, to dig deeper to get answers, especially students? We really want them to be doing this. They can prioritize AI information literacy early and often, and I think this is something we're already learning. There's no point in telling them not to use AI. That ship, unfortunately, has sailed. Instead, focus on how to go deeper on these topics, on the topics that warranted, to pay attention to the cited sources and to question the easy answers. Understanding how AI search tools work can go a long way. Offer library platforms that are transparent, resource-rich discovery alternatives that provide peer review at a glance, provide author and institutional affiliations, media buzz, show them where things are coming from. Reduce the amount of clicks it takes to get to better quality research. Eliminate logins when you're able to do so. Resist the urge to demonize AI tools, and this is a hard one for me sometimes. They're here to stay, and hopefully they'll get a lot better. And in the meantime, as they gain more traction, especially with younger patrons and students, try not to be judgmental because we're not going to win them over to our site, unfortunately. And reinforce the library as a trusted gateway to information. It's not in any of these slides, but I've looked into patron studies over the years from Pew Research and other places, and libraries are hugely trusted. They're trusted more than the government, they're trusted more than police, people trust them more than their doctors. Lean into that, they trust us. CloudSource OA is a platform that covers quite a few of these bullets. It's easy to use, there's never a login or authentication, it's transparent where and who information comes from. All these things we want our students to be looking at. Right. All right, we'll turn this over to my colleague, Rick Branham, to talk a little bit about CloudSource and AI.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great job. So, carrying on from where Mariska left off, here's a slide that shows a few really good articles about some of the current problems with AI. And many of these we hear discussed in various forums like this, and certainly in library circles where they're looking at AI as not a panacea that's going to solve all of our problems, but practically looking at how we're going to implement AI and improve our student outcomes, not hinder them. So some of the main areas that you hear discussed are misinformation and hallucinations. I think all of us have experienced that. Mariska pointed out a few. Bias and ethical concerns. Is it ethical for AI to crawl copyrighted material? Are we protecting the rights of authors and other concerns? Erosion of critical thinking skills, as Mariska pointed out, certainly a real problem if we're trying to teach students how to search and think for themselves. AI may be fast food. I haven't heard you use that term before, but it's really applicable. And then academic integrity and plagiarism. I worry that students are just going to be cranking out term papers without much thought at all. Just let the chatbot write it for them. Certainly a problem there. So one of the approaches we're taking to incorporating AI tools into our platform, there's many different ways we're going to incorporate AI, and I'm going to talk on that. One of them is using a chatbot. We don't want a chatbot that's going to fall into the same traps that Google has. So one of the things we're looking at is, let me expand my screen here, is taking that natural language query and actually optimizing it, being transparent in how that's presented to the user. We don't want to just paraphrase their search results. We want to try to prevent the chatbot from hallucinating. We want to prevent the chatbot from actually undermining our information literacy goals. So the chatbot can do a good job at plowing through lots of results, which is typically what you get in a discovery platform, and offering real help in summarizing those results. Students, even advanced degree students, I warrant, have some trouble in using facets and filters and power search tools. So a summary helper can be really good at showing top cited articles, most recent articles, related searches that the user may not have thought of. One of the areas we're working on now too is deep searching. So for those full text resources that where the license permits it, we can train the large language model to learn from that qualified full text and do a better job at searching. We want our application of AI tools to be transparent. So we want the user to know and actually take action to say, let me use this chatbot to help me, rather than mistaking it for qualified results. And one of the things we're working on now in our prototype is an avatar-based chatbot. Our product manager got a little cutesy with this and called it a catbot AI. And but the idea is that you can use whatever kind of avatar or icon to symbolize your institution's use of that chatbot. So it could be your school mascot or whatever you like. Maybe, Mariska would probably use Clippy, the paperclip, right?
I'm classic.
Just to, roll old school.
Childhood friend.
There you go. But anyway, the point is, it's not taking up the top real estate. It's positioned like a finding aid, so it's further down on the screen. The user can say, yes, I want to use this to help me. And then they can keep that turned on or off and even set preferences on how they want that to show up. Again, it's an optional application. And like I said, it's co-brandable. You can make that look however you want or not use it at all. So again, we think the chatbot has a real application in terms of helping the user understand queries and to optimize their query. And here's what we've been doing, and this is what is in development now. The idea is you search a natural language query like climate change laws in the US, then, sorry, I stepped away from the camera, I don't want to go all over the place. Then the chatbot can interpret that and more effectively optimize it to something like climate change and policy or legislation in United States or US, as an example. Things that an average user might not know, but something that a well-trained AI chatbot can interpret, parse out, and more effectively search. So I've given a few other examples there. What we've done in our development thus far is train our chatbot on all of our search documentation, including deep search documentation provided by the search engine itself, Elasticsearch, so that it actually has a deep understanding of how to effectively execute a search and how to parse out a natural language query effectively. And that's, I had a prototype ready to show you, and I could not get it to download with the Wi-Fi here, so I apologize for that. Some other opportunities for AI involves metadata enrichment. So the metadata provided by the publishers for articles and other e-resources is typically very thin. CloudSource has built an entire array of tools that enrich the metadata, and we're already adding language, field of study, and concept fields to the metadata using AI. We're expanding that by adding abstracts where none exists, adding more accurate language detection of the article. Right now, the best we can do is fall back on, if there's no article language, then we fall back on the language of the journal, the source journal, and that's not always accurate. But with AI, we can do a better job of detecting that. We're doing things like normalizing the publisher name, checking the link URLs to make sure they're accurate and lead to the right source. And then we're also investigating several other fields for metadata enrichment. Again, we're already doing some of that, and we're expanding that greatly by using our AI platform. So I want to pivot and show you the CloudSource OA demo. So again, CloudSource is our entire platform for electronic resource management. It includes a discovery component, which you're about to look at. It includes backend tools that are enriching the metadata, collection management tools so you can curate collections. You can remove certain journals if you don't want them displayed to the end user. It's where you manage your authentication mechanisms, sort of license resources. It's where the link resolver, the proxy server, all those are managed. And finally, full collection usage statistics. Those are all included. But we're just limiting our demo today to the front end for the patron. And we're only looking at OA resources, so not the full index. So we're going to do a search, and right now there are about 70 million OA resources. That's articles from about 178,000 journals. It's also open ebooks, open e-textbooks, and a whole trove of open educational resources. And I'll show a little more of that. And I'll walk through the features as we move along here. But let's go with, let me start out by doing a search. If I can see what I'm looking at here, there we go, that helps. I'm searching for artificial intelligence, and I just did a general keyword search. And I got close to 3 million hits. You see that there is a Wikipedia article. That's something you can choose to use or not. There's also all of your facets and filters. You can also be a little more specific in your query. In this case, I put artificial intelligence in quotes and said, or AI, and that expanded the number of results I got. I could have also gone to my advanced search and done that same query, perhaps in a way that's a little easier for the end user to understand. So I'm going to do that same search, artificial intelligence or AI. And again, I got the same number of results back. All right, so let's open up the filters. We'll take a look at what's there. We've got the format. Before we do that, I'm going to search within for hallucination. And that narrowed our results considerably. We're going to limit to format if we wanted to, peer review status, and I will limit to peer review, yes. And then you have the publication date, fields in chronological order, so it's easy to select the most recent dates. These fields of study, again, are primarily generated by AI tools. And like I said, we're expanding the presence of metadata in other fields through our AI platform. You've got language, license, the mesh headings, and publisher. All right, so let's take a look at this top hit. By the way, there are usage stats or resource statistics. You can quickly see citation metrics and peer-reviewed status, etc. Let's scroll down and look at this result. Let's take a look at the detail on this record. So again, you see in the tabs across the top, metadata that we've added to the existing record to add more access points, make it a little more discoverable. If we look at the linked articles that are referenced, we can click right through, or we can open all of them in a separate tab with a single click. Super helpful for the researcher. Likewise with the cited by articles and the published with references. One click on that view article button will take us to the full text. Every resource in CloudSource OA has full text available with one click and no authentication. So it's available even for your alumni who may not be authenticating or be on campus. We went to the publisher page through the links there. Those are on the hit list, but also the detailed view. I can easily add something to a list. I can permalink to the search view or to the full text view very easily. I can build a citation. So we draw from a citation library of more than 2,500 citation styles. You can present the ones you want to your users. You can add style notes, links to a style guide. Your users can even annotate the citation before they save it. Helpful if they can't remember why they chose this article, they can make notes to themselves. And that's all captured when they drop this into their paper. I can do things like make that italics, hyperlink, the DOI, super straightforward and easy. I can even export this citation to a third-party citation manager like RepWorks or EndNote or something. Okay, so let's take a look real quick at some of the OER resources. So in this case, I'm going to do another keyword search on, you guessed it, artificial intelligence. I wonder if I clicked, I think I went backwards, sorry. Now I'm going to do the search on OER and OA, or open ebooks, open e-textbooks. We aggregate OER material through qualified partners who go through a pretty rigorous vetting process. So we work with OAPN for open ebooks and the Open Textbook Library for e-textbooks. By the way, Open Textbook Library also includes OpenStax and some Merlot resources. And then finally, OER Commons is a great partner for providing us with things like open courses, online courses, and lesson plans and activities and worksheets, etc. So I'm going to do a search on social media teenagers and got back a good number of hits. Now I'm going to narrow down to book formats, books and book chapters, and quickly be taken to a number of really great hits. Again, metadata for every resource in our database, including those for OA and OER materials, have enriched metadata. They also, regardless of the format, have that one click that takes me through to the full text. So here's the detailed view of that record. Again, lots of expanded access points, abstracts, cited by, some web reviews on that article or this ebook. And then I'm going to do another search for calculus. In this case, I'm a student preparing for a calculus exam, and I'm looking for a textbook. So I filter down to format textbook. And then you've got some other filters like course level for OER and OER primary user. So I'm going to narrow down to college level, community college level. And I've got, quite a number of hits for open textbooks for calculus. And this one comes from OER Commons, and there I am ready to use this open textbook. And again, I can come back to that again and again without any authentication issues. Okay, just really quickly, there are times when your end user is going to want to see what publications are available in your collection and perhaps search articles within that publication. So we do have a publication navigator. And let's take a look at that ability to search between collections. If you've curated multiple collections, you've got multiple search options. I'm going to look for nature, and it gave me some search suggestions, and right at the top of the list is the journal I'm looking for. I can even pull up every article if I want, or I can go into the landing page for this article. Lots of good information, some quick filters that will pull up every article. I can go to the journal website. I can search within this journal and limit to specific years, months even. And it's just a quick way of starting at the journal level and then doing some additional searching. There's also the, as you would expect, the A to Z, perhaps for those occasions when you can't remember the journal name, but you can recognize it in a list, so you can browse very easily. Some takeaways. We've thrown a lot of information at you today, but some things we'd like you to remember. First of all, AI is here to stay. It does no good for us to hide from AI or pretend that it's going to go away. It's not going to go away. Libraries can help your students embrace AI and use it as another search tool. Use it to help them with their learning outcomes. There's a whole lot of OA resources. Today, as we saw, 70 million and counting. Mariska and I are tasked with constantly updating these slides, and it was just about a year ago. We were at 50-something million.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we are growing rapidly. Discovery can be easy. It doesn't have to be a slog. Using tools like even Google Scholar can be frustrating because your Google Scholar even will try to attempt you to pay for an article, even if it's open. They'll attempt you to try to authenticate through an institution or other means, even if it's open. With CloudSource, we're trying to put everything in one place and make that path to full text super easy. And OA can be the foundation for your collection. At the point we are with OA, with the amount of OA in all of your subscription databases, the amount of OA being published year over year, it doesn't make sense to try to just bolt on OA as an afterthought. It can now be a foundation for building your collections. And AI solutions can help your students find the right resources, improve their search and literacy skills. It can really help direct your users to the right resources more quickly than they may be able to do now. So we appreciate your attending the presentation today, and we look forward to talking with you again.